A half dozen block kicks, 2 return for touchdowns. The worst team in the NFL in the Browns beat the best team in the Green Bay Packers. The Seattle Seahawks scored as many points in one half as the Texans have all season long. Meanwhile, the Falcons couldn't score a single point on a vaunted freaking Panthers defense, plus plenty of major injuries that shake up depth charts and, of course, your fantasy rosters. That is what happened in the NFL in week 3. And that is what we cover in today's show, game by game. Hayden, did I miss anything?
You just explained how hard our job is. We have to predict the future, and like these are sometimes the events of this thing. So we're trying our best out here, but sometimes the Browns will beat the Packers. And like, if I told you guys that before, everybody would unsubscribe.
Imagine on Thursday if we got in here and said, oh yes, the Browns are going to upset the Packers this week. We would be laughed off the stage and everyone hit unsubscribe. By the way, hit that subscribe button because we got a doozy of an episode for you, and we kick things off with the Chicago Bears getting their first victory of the season, 31, as the Dallas Cowboys are kept to just 14 points. Hayden, Caleb Williams has been the bulk of the conversation in the media over the last 2 weeks. Here, he puts 4 touchdowns on the board, and we finally get that sprinkle of Ben Johnson essence into this game too.
This is the most decisive in-pocket game of his entire career. There was a lot more manageable situations. That's something we talked about in the previous games. When you go back and watch those, he was still making wow plays. But then on 2nd and 32s in situations like that, even just 2nd and 15s after a holding or just a DeAndre Swift running the wrong direction play, he would put himself in bad situations and then obviously turn the ball over. But on the other plays, he was actually playing well. And I think that we have to kind of split the two groups here. People that want clicks and who are not watching the All-22, and then people digesting the All-22 who kind of kept saying, Caleb's not playing as bad as it seems. And then in this one against one of the easiest defenses in the league, at home, he completely blows up. It was the most EPA per play of any game of his career. And there was not even a bunch of like scrambling and like throwing outside the pocket for Caleb. Obviously, the flea flicker is going to help his stats out. But a lot of the throws were just like in the pocket, going through his progression. It seemed like he was just finding the guy that was open and actually hitting it like on time, very accurate in this game. So I think that from week 1, it's gotten better to week 2. And then from week 2, it was significantly better this week. Obviously, the big caveat is the Dallas Cowboys defense. We're going to want to attack them throughout the way. But I think that Caleb Williams, I know where this one is going long-term. He has way too much talent. And it's very evident that Ben Johnson is finding the right guys to be on the field. And when they're not in 3rd and 35s, he can actually do some play action stuff and get guys wide open.
I was a bit nervous at the start, though, because the first drive ended on a 3rd and 14 after 3 plays. And I felt, here we go again. But then the next 2 drives were touchdowns, including a 5-play 76-yarder that included a 35-yard touchdown pass to, once again, Rome Odunze, who Trevon Diggs tried to press him at the line of scrimmage, contacts him, falls flat in his face, and then can't catch up. It's kind of like that NCAA video game meme where the guy's bouncing up and down, and then the wide receiver runs right by him for a score. And then the next snap, again, something that we talked about through the first 2 weeks, and not being ahead of the sticks and on the scoreboard doesn't allow you to do this. We get a flea flicker 1-play 65-yard touchdown to Luther Burden III that even when DeAndre Swift gets it, he ephus pitches it back to Caleb Williams, who then on a rope launches this ball to Luther Burden. And that just allows the team to go up 14-3 at that point, again, after the defense forced a really nice fumble on a long Javonte Williams run. So again, not the best start after the first series, but immediately we see what we wanted to see from week 1. And hey, there's plenty of time, even if they opened 0-2, there's plenty of time for this to be back on track for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, I did want to note the upcoming schedule: Raiders, Commanders, Saints, Bengals, and Giants. They have a Ravens game mixed in there too, but those are 5, to me, winnable games against defenses that have been struggling throughout. And this was just a team I think is just going to consistently get better. They're still trying to figure out the offensive line. It was not perfect the entire game, but he was definitely under pressure a lot less than typical. What just stands out to me is, like, on that flea flicker, like, yes, was he wide open? Of course. But like, he did not step into that throw at all. That was 62 air yards down the field on a freaking line. There were some plays off of play action where he's not even having his feet both set, and he can just throw the ball with so much torque. And obviously there's some times where he gets off balance and the ball gets dirted. And like, that
still
is a problem.
scattershot stuff. Yeah.
Sometimes, but his wow plays are just, they really stand out. And that's been 100%. The case. And we've been talking about how fast Caleb has looked this season. We did not even need that today because everything inside the pocket was like really working. So big shout out to Rome Odunze for cooking. Diggs, who's just like has not been himself coming off a major injury. No Deron Bland for the Cowboys. No Micah Parsons for the Cowboys. Kenny Clark was banged up a little bit as well in this one. I think their linebackers and safeties are all over the place. So we're going to be firing up against the Dallas Cowboys at all times. But I like the pace that the Bears are playing with, more play action, some more sprinkle stuff in here. You get DJ Moore going a little bit. Even DeAndre Swift in the screen game gets going a little bit. So yeah, this was like a very, very optimistic game from Caleb Williams. I think that the last 2 weeks, if you're like really studying it play by play, I think that this was not that surprising of an outcome because I do think that the Bears offense looked a little bit better than the couple highlight negatives that he had earlier.
Again, you and I kind of live in our content bubble here. So I don't consume a whole bunch of national media. I kind of consume that through our editorial calls that we have every single morning when maybe some higher ups or other people on the content side of Underdog just say Caleb Williams is trash, he's garbage. And then you and I actually like go back and watch this stuff. It's like, well, actually they have terrible success rate rushing the football. And it's exactly how we opened stats versus film this week that, hey, this is less of a Caleb Williams conversation and more of a Bears conversation at large, that the environment has been bad. Now, the other part of that conversation was this team had not gotten their 4, second round plus picks involved. And that changed in this game. I mean, Luther Burden, 3 catches, 101 yards in that 65-yard score. He even converted a 3rd and 4 that it was a manufactured touch for him. So boom, explosive player, makes explosive plays and changes games. And then it was just 1 catch, but Colson Loveland did have a 31-yarder. And I believe he left with a knee injury later on in this contest too.
Yeah, I think it was a hip injury for Loveland. It was disappointing because Cole Kmet had some, he obviously had that touchdown wide open. I think that he was going to be somebody that was going to be more of a focal point. But yeah, that was a great play from Caleb Williams, even on that Colson Loveland, like 1st and 10, play action. And all of a sudden you get explosive to Colson Loveland. So yeah, it was good to see all of them. And they're using DeAndre Swift, like 4 targets, 3 catches, 45 yards. Like you get him out in space and stuff where he has to make fewer decisions.
It was that
like,
41-yard screen that he had. Like he's going to have maybe one of those every 2 or 3 games, and it does do really well. I did want to ask you about the running back stuff because Swift did have 13 carries for 33, and then Monangai goes in there for 6 for 16. So it's 13 carries for one, 6 for the other. Was it like a drive-by-drive thing? I saw him like get some work inside the 20, but then Monangai had to break like 3 tackles to even lose 3 yards.
Yeah, these guys are just running every direction but north-south. I mean, so like rotation, whatever it is, DeAndre Swift was not a bell cow in this one. Kyle Monangai played. These guys, you can just spin them around. It looks like they're like at the park with the baseball bat under their eyes.
Okay, let's talk the Dallas Cowboys here because through the first 2 weeks, few players at the quarterback position were as good and on fire as Dak Prescott. Here, 31 of 40, 251 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, which I think one went off the hands of one of his wide receivers. But maybe the biggest talking point is without recording a single stat other than a carry, CeeDee Lamb leaves with an ankle injury and status to be determined moving forward.
Yeah, it looked fairly bad. They're saying it's not that bad. He went in there right after the break and tried to run and couldn't move. So we'll see. And like a lot of guys, we'll try to play through their high ankle sprain and it gets worse the next week. So I would guess like more likely than not, he's probably out a week or 2. And if he's not out on IR, I would consider that a win. It was not the best looking injury, in my opinion.
It was like a hip drop mechanism without it being a hip drop tackle.
Yeah.
It was very odd, but it definitely looked like a high ankle. He immediately went to the blue tent. And as you said, he tried to return and simply couldn't. And so we'll see moving forward. I think Jerry Jones came out and said it's not severe or some words that he used. That doesn't mean he's not going to miss time. And that doesn't mean he's not going to be limited even when on the field. So without him, what we did get was 14 targets for Jake Ferguson for 82 yards. And then 9 targets, 5 catches, 68 yards, and a score here for George Pickens.
So Dak Prescott, I thought he played actually pretty dang well. Remember, they're with the backup center and their left tackle has just been, he's been a weakness even last year as a rookie. And then this year, I think it has carried over as well. So Jake Ferguson is going to be Dak Prescott's safety blanket. I mean, 13 catches on 14 targets. It's all the underneath stuff. If this team is trailing, which they're going to be trailing a lot, like the Cowboys defense is complete ass, and they're going to run with all the pace and they're going to feel comfortable with Dak Prescott, I think they're just going to throw the ball like crazy. I think we're going to see a lot of 40 drop back games from Dak Prescott moving forward. And Jake Ferguson was already showing up in my model as a top 5 fantasy tight end. And like that was before we get 14 targets from him. So he's an absolute must start. He's going to be right up there with Trey McBride for me. If CeeDee Lamb is out, the volume is extremely predictable. And this is not just like this year. This has been in the past as well. The George Pickens, that interception on the wide receiver, it was George Pickens. This was not the prettiest George Pickens game out there. That said, 5 catches, 68 yards, and a score here on 9 targets. So CeeDee Lamb is out. It's going to be these 2 guys out there. And then it's like Tolbert, Flournoy, Miles Sanders, Luke Schoonmaker. Like Turpin made a couple big plays in this one as well. But it's going to be George Pickens and Jake Ferguson. And these guys are going to have massive projections just because the Cowboys are going to be, I'm not sure if you said it on the last show, but very similar to the Bengals, where the defense can't stop anybody and they're just going to have ridiculous passing numbers. So I still think that Dak's going to have better days than he did today, according to the stat book. I thought he actually was playing pretty well. The environment around him kind of sunk.
So Cowboys coming up, Green Bay Packers next, then the New York Jets after that. So they're probably, and anything is possible in today's NFL, but staring in the face of, 1-3 at this moment. Meanwhile, for the Bears, yes, they started 0-2. They also played the Vikings and the Lions. And we all know how that first game went in prime time against the Vikings. Then it's the Raiders and the Commanders. Hopefully Jaden Daniels is back. And then the Saints after that. So again, 0-2, you have about a 10% chance of making the playoffs. But based on how this game looked versus the others, just in totality for this team, if they ever get some semblance of like a consistent rushing attack, I have a really good feeling about this Bears offense moving forward, especially with like Luther Burden continuing to hopefully emerge, and maybe, just maybe, Colson Loveland's injury isn't as serious as it somewhat seemed. Philadelphia Eagles 33, LA Rams 26. We can just fast forward into halftime when the Eagles here are down 19-7. They had 33 total yards in the first half, -1 passing yards, 0 for 6 on third downs, but they did have 1 cool tush-push touchdown. All right. Meanwhile, the Rams on the opposite end had 115 rushing yards at halftime, including Kyron Williams 69 and Blake Corum, who, by the way, still looks spicy on a week-to-week basis, 6 for 40. And it doesn't get better immediately after half. Jalen Hurts, sack fumble on the first or second snap, a quick pressure from backup right tackle Matt Pryor. The Rams immediately score. It's a Kyron Williams receiving touchdown. That gives Matthew Stafford actually 9th all-time in passing TDs in NFL history.
Whoa.
So, again, let's put a pin in this. 26-7 Rams at this point. The very next series, when you are down by 19 points, Fred Johnson, who I think they traded for a Howie special during preseason because Lane Johnson was out in this game, an injury to definitely monitor, comes in at right tackle, and the Eagles finally start throwing down the field. 38-yard catch on a sluggo for A.J. Brown honestly like opens the floodgates here. Then a 33-yard touchdown to Dallas Goedert, a quick 3 or 4 play drive equals 26-14, Rams still leading. Then the Eagles get the ball back and again march down the field, and a back shoulder touchdown for A.J. Brown. Now we're at 26-21. Again, there's a theme here. A.J. Brown might have a defensive back in his zip code, in his area, in his hip pocket, but the dude played bully ball like vintage AJB in this game. That is 161 yards for the Eagles in those 2 drives alone. Whereas, I don't know, the opening 10 quarters of the season were absolutely trash in terms of a passing offense. Then the Rams have their own injury that mounts up here with Kevin Dotson, one of the stellar guards in this team, leaves towards the end of the third quarter. Stafford took a big shot, kept playing. 3rd and 1, try to throw back to Devontae Adams. That's incomplete. 4th and 1, again, with the Rams missing interior pieces, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter reset the line of scrimmage, force and the line of scrimmage back 2 yards, and then so the Eagles take over there. Now we get to a 4th and 2, field goal blocked because Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, again, reset the line of scrimmage. 3rd and 10 in their own end zone. A.J. Brown wins all over Darius Williams. Again, flat out baller A.J. Brown turned into in this game. And we really just take it down to the Eagles taking the lead on a 27-26 touchdown. 4th and goal, a simple out route for Devontae Smith with the leverage. At that time, Jalen Hurts went 7 of 9 on 10+ yard throws in the second half for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then we all know what happens. They, once again, the Rams push and push and push to get into field goal range. Hopefully this time, after previously a blocked field goal, Cardi steps up. Another blocked field goal. Jordan Davis gets his mitts on it. He also recovers it and returns it to the house. The fastest ever a man has moved in the NFL at 300 plus pounds. And once again, that brings us 33 Eagles, 26 Rams. And yes, the Philadelphia Eagles are 3-0.
Since Saquon, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Devontae Smith have all been out there, they have not lost a game. So they're like now like 20 something and 0. They just don't lose. You know, like if you remove the game where Jalen Hurts left with the concussion, and then you remove the other games where AJ Brown was not out there in like week 2 and week 4 losses, this team is undefeated. I think we need to acknowledge that this team is undefeated when everyone's healthy, whenever we nitpick the passing offense and stuff. And I think that Jalen Hurts, he just gets graded on a curve because he knows if he doesn't turn the ball over, the team's most likely to win. And then in a situation where they're actually chasing points, then he's going to be a little bit more aggressive. And then AJ Brown, Devontae Smith get going. He deserves some criticism. There's a difference between Jalen Hurts and the elite guys. But I just think that this team is orchestrated. They have such a talent advantage over everybody else that he plays a little bit different. And when they do need to be aggressive, it really works because they have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith making plays.
I hear you on them not losing when that quartet of players plays together. However, you do not want to put yourself in a situation where the other team, you know, has 6 field goal attempts, doesn't put the game away early on, like Matthew Stafford couldn't in this one, and then you have to block 2 field goals to win this game. I think the Eagles do still deserve criticism for the first half performance and the first 2 games of the season. But as we talked about, they had the talent to totally flip a switch and finally start throwing the football down the field. And that's what happened. And it finally worked. And hopefully that continues from here on out, because when that happens, this Eagles team is fantastic. But to me, that doesn't make them above criticism of, well, they still just win games, because that's very similar to me of the conversation that we had with the Chiefs last year, where I often brought up that they struggled offensively over and over and over again. And then sure, they got to the Super Bowl, but when they got to the Super Bowl, they couldn't do anything offensively. So at some point, if you played football on offense for the first 10 quarters, how the Eagles did, then you're not going to win the entire thing. It will come back to bite you. But if you play it like you did in the second half, which is what you and I and everyone and all Eagles fans have been hoping for. Yes. But so I think it's fair to criticize when they didn't do that. And it's fair to, you know, praise them for when they did.
Yeah, I just think the difference between the Chiefs and the Eagles, just the rosters. Like, and the Chiefs were losing games where the Eagles, like, they just still don't lose games. Like, it's just crazy. But like, they do have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, and they're pushing.
But you can still criticize them if they win games.
I understand.
Like, what are we doing here? Should I just not like go through and talk about the players and what happened?
No, I agree. We should be criticizing and like acknowledging that the pass volume is lower and stuff. But and it wasn't even you. I just think a lot of people are really go crazy in on Jalen Hurts. And I think that he's not having to play quarterback like other people have to play quarterback, because the talent on the roster is so overwhelmingly good. And when they do have to throw the ball down the field, it largely works. If I was in charge of the offense, I'd be throwing the ball down the field early in games, more so 100%. Than this offense does. And I think it would work. But it was good to see, and when they needed it, to throw the ball down the field, and that AJ Brown like looked healthy, because like in the first week I thought maybe wasn't at full health after kind of an odd training camp, but now he looks fully healthy and dominant as he usually does.
Now the other part of this is, as we talked about heading into this game, the Rams play single high coverage at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Again, that probably plays a part in Saquon Barkley going 18 of 46. Now, in the 4 carries that he had at 60 plus yards last year against this Rams team, they did load the box in many of those occasions. And once you break through, you're off to the races. We haven't had one of those Saquon Barkley moments at this time yet, after 3 games. But the AJ Brown stuff, you know, there's a lot of open receivers like we just talked about with the Cowboys, right? Or excuse me, and against the Bears with broken plays, those types of things. That still wasn't the case here with AJ Brown or even Devontae Smith. Those are just, I am stronger than you, bigger than you, Emmanuel Forbes, Darius Williams, whoever else, I'm going to come down with the football. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. Again, I'm going to monitor the Lane Johnson injury, because that, who knows if Fred Johnson can step into those shoes. Obviously, Matt Pryor could not. And then on the Rams end, I slightly mentioned it, but they easily should have put this game away in the first half. They should have put this game away in the third quarter. They shouldn't have kicked, 6 field goals and only made 4 of them. And Matthew Stafford, there were a number of occasions where it was a third down and he misses an out route to Puka Nacua, or there's an end zone target to Devontae Adams with a corner draped on him, and Devontae just doesn't have strong hands to come up with it on top of it. So if the Rams had made one of those plays, they would have won this game. Yep. And so that is extremely notable to me that they didn't. And then obviously they were close enough to doing it at the same exact time.
What did you see from the split between Puka and Devontae Adams? I guess with Puka, it's like, is he the first overall pick in the draft right now? If you're holding fantasy drafts right now, I mean, this is just ludicrous numbers from him. And then with Devontae Adams, like sometimes I want to rank him as like a low end wide receiver 1. I do think that's so concentrated, 15 targets and 8 targets, that in good matchups, I can justify that. Devontae Adams obviously still gets home with 56 yards and his touchdown here. Just like trying to monitor that split.
So Devontae did have a touchdown. It was a push off that you can also call the dark arts. That was a very early score. He did not have a single catch in the second half of this game. And Next Gen Stats tweeted this out, that Quinyon Mitchell shadowed Devontae Adams on 27 of 34 routes. Yeah. It was the first game of his career where he shadowed a receiver on over 60% of routes. And yeah, I mean, Puka Nacua who also had a bad 15-yard penalty that really changed the win percentage here for the Rams, but still an absolute monster at 11 catches and 112 yards and 15 targets over
That's huge.
The middle of the field.
Yeah, I mean, if Adams going to be like shadowed by outside corner ones because he's playing largely X receiver, and then now Puka Nacua is like in the Cooper Kupp role, but he's like even bigger and more physical than Cooper Kupp was, like, dude, we're going to get some wild numbers from Puka Nacua as long as Matthew Stafford could hold up. Sounds like he missed some more throws here, and I know he took some huge shots. Yeah. So hopefully there's not any setbacks. Yeah.
And then on the running back split, as I mentioned, Kyron goes 20 of 94. He played the vast majority of the second half when this game was getting closer and closer and closer, even if Blake Corum looked really good in the first half with 8 carries, for 53 yards. And yeah, I mentioned the push off for Devontae Adams. The first tush push that the Eagles ran, there was a false start. Mike Pereira got in the mic and no one called it. And there was also an AJ Brown push off. Like, they were just uncalled penalties all over the place. Yeah. But I guess it's one of those let him play scenarios. Jaguars 17, Houston Texans 10. Texans now 0-3. Jaguars get their second win of the season. Hayden, 27 points is not very many in the year of our Lord 2025. What the hell happened here with so much investment at quarterbacks and wide receivers on both these teams?
Neither team wanted to catch the ball, and that kind of summed it up. After watching this game like really, really intentfully, it makes me think that the Colts should be easily the favorite to win this division. Not a lot of 0-2 teams make the playoffs. Even fewer 0-3 teams make the playoffs for the Texans. So we are officially at that point in the season for the Texans, like where the panic meter should be all the way up. The best player in this game by far, Josh Hines-Allen, who ended up closing this game with the strip sack, beating the second round left tackle for the Texans around the perimeter. So that led to an interception for CJ Stroud on a little deflected pass. And it was just CJ Stroud where he doesn't trust his offensive line because he shouldn't, but also he's making fewer plays because the lack of trust. And maybe this isn't even just from this year, but also just kind of piggybacking off what happened last season. So right now, CJ Stroud is not playing like an above average quarterback. I know he can do that, but right now he is just not making as many throws. For example, early in this game, Nico Collins on a big crossing route just missed him out there. There were some throws to the flats where the ball wasn't going to exactly where it needed to be. Late in the game, I thought there was a chance for Christian Kirk to make a play to tie this one up, and CJ Stroud missed him a little bit too. So he only took 2 sacks, but he was under pressure for 40% of his dropbacks. So he was definitely on it. We still got home with Nico Collins on kind of just a weird play from the Jacksonville secondary where he was just left wide open for a 50-yard touchdown. I still think Nico Collins is really good. They're getting the ball underneath too, and we're going to have some big plays out of him. The ground game was very mediocre. Nick Chubb and Woody Marks kind of split that, not evenly, but enough so where you're like, man, if this Texans team is going to be putting up under 20 points each week, Nick Chubb is like the RB 30, and that's a win ROI wise, but you're not feeling super fired up about this. And in Christian Kirk's return, he has 8 targets, which is the second most on the team, but he was out there for 75% of the routes. It was still a rotation. You see everybody rotating out there. So they're kind of holding tryouts at offensive line and at wide receiver for the Texans side of this, but this was a really, really bad loss for the Texans. And for a large part of the game, they were unable to move the ball.
This is the fantasy show. By the way, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Thank you so much for watching and leaving a thumbs up and telling all your friends about this channel. I have to ask about the 3 first-round pick investments of Brian Thomas Jr., who gets 6 targets, but still his catch rate is miserable with 2 for 55. And then Travis Hunter, who gets 2 targets, 1 catch for 21 yards. What gives on both?
Let's start with Brian Thomas. For most of this game, it was one of those Brian Thomas games where just Trevor and Brian Thomas are just not on the same page against zone coverage. And also Brian Thomas has just like a straight up drop where I think like at this point, you can just call it, this is the yips, which is kind of crazy. Is like, there was reports from the preseason that, hey, like Brian Thomas is like dropping a lot of passes. This is just kind of odd. And then I thought like grading him as a rookie, he was phenomenal. But I did think that his man coverage ability was way better than his zone coverage ability. And that's what happened here. Like late in the game, Brian Thomas on a big crossing route against man coverage, from what I can tell, they pick up the blitz. ETN picks it up, and he just has a lot of separation because against man coverage, he's super fast. And on that catch, he was running the fastest out of any wide receiver this season. So that's just the ups and downs of Brian Thomas, where he created like the huge chunk play to like kind of win the game. The next couple plays, the Texans allow ETN to score. They were not trying to tackle him. He walks into the end zone. Shout out to Travis Etienne, my guy there, for getting the fantasy points that we deserve. Etienne was the clear starter.
0 attempts to tackle him. Everyone just backed away.
No, but fantasy points will take them. But that was sprung up by the Brian Thomas explosive. But the rest of the game, it was just the oddities of the Brian Thomas stuff where it looked like the first 2 games. So can't explain it. It does make him more of a tier 2 wide receiver until he feels more comfortable with the offense. I will say this, and as we get into, the bigger discussion here in Travis Hunter, is this offense feels like they have 9 million plays out of different alignments and stuff, and that nobody has a full understanding of what the hell is going on, which I think over time it'll be a good thing because Liam Cohen's like dinks and dunks. Everyone's involved here. But right now, they literally cannot even line up. And the guy that's like, I think to blame for a lot of this is Travis Hunter. There has been, I think, 4 or 5 plays that he is either a teammate is telling him exactly where to line up, or in this one, they had to call a timeout because he was lined up in the wrong spot.
It's like 3rd and 4.
Yeah.
Critical situation.
There was a Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter on one side. I think that Trevor like checks it. He's expecting one of the guys to throw a screen to, and neither of them go to, actually catch the ball. So there's just really weird things going on with Travis Hunter on offense. I think that on defense, there was a play in the red zone against Nico Collins where he looked good. I think that the cornerback stuff for Travis Hunter has worked. He just like there truly like does not know where to line up. I don't think that's like that big of an exaggeration right now. And obviously the big thing there is just the lack of practice time. So I don't know what they're going to do. Diami Brown left late in this game, so Hunter played a lot more, but he's more of a slot wide receiver, and he's kind of the cornerback 3 on the team right now. And the more they like divvy up his playing time, the worse it looks on offense. So we didn't get like anything out of him. There's one ball in the flats where he caught, made a couple moves. That looked like college Travis Hunter. But we're not getting like outside wide receiver stuff. We're not getting downfield stuff. And there's a lot of pre-snap stuff that's been mistaken for Travis Hunter.
I'm just looking at the snap counts. He played 43 snaps on defense, 36 of those in coverage. And then when you look on offense, 37 snaps with 28 routes on top of that. So it's a total that is very high. But again, that's 37 of 70 offensive snaps. And then 43 of 63 defensive snaps. Mm-hmm. So the percentage is higher on defense, but at the same time, he's not being a full-time player on either. And then you could argue that that's hurting him as a full-time player of not being on one side or the other.
That's where I'm at. And I think right now he looks better at corner than wide receiver. So we'll see. They can definitely use him on offense. Like this team put up 17 points and it was a grind to get there.
It is ridiculous. I understand that they won, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all that matters. But Parker Washington still gets 11 targets. Brenton Strange gets 7. Brenton Strange is their highest grossing pass catcher with 6 for 61.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this stuff is still broken in terms of it not looking right. Like you have to get at least one of Brian Thomas or Travis Hunter going for this to still be a quality passing offense. Now, the rushing game has looked good previously. Today, just 24 carries for 86 yards. They did get 2 scores, but at least you're 2-1. So you're winning while these, gripes and grumblings are happening. But at the same time, does it feel like that this is going to happen before like a bye week where everyone knows exactly what is happening and like Brian Thomas Jr. gets confidence back too?
Well, the first 3 games were the Panthers, the Bengals, and then the Texans. And then the next 4 games are the 49ers, Chiefs, Seahawks, and Rams, So like they're winning. It's
got to be games,
now. But you got to flip this. And I think that the Brenton Strange stuff should not go away because he's the only guy catching the ball. I haven't talked about this, but like Parker Washington and the other guys, like I saw Tim Patrick out there for plenty of snaps as well. Diami Brown. I'll say this, Travis Etienne, he dropped a pass. There were drop passes from everybody, not just Brian Thomas, like everybody. And Liam Cohen's like Parker Washington deserved more snaps because of last week's performance. And then this week it was miserable. So I thought Trevor missed some throws, certainly. And was he amazing? Definitely not. Was there more dropped passes from this team than anyone else this week? I think that was probably the case. But right now they have a Travis Hunter problem because they don't even know how to line him up properly right now.
And that is the coaching thing. It's not focusing in on making sure he knows exactly on one side on what to do. And it's probably trying to do too much. But on the other side, we can also probably go behind the scenes and say, well, if everyone else knows where to be and Travis Hunter is truly like a one-of-a-kind football player coming out of college in terms of being a prospect, he should also probably have the mental fortitude of knowing where to line up on offense too.
But we talked about this in the pre-draft stuff, is that he practiced on defense and really didn't play on offense or practice on offense, and they just kind of tell him where to line up. Like you can do that at Colorado.
And that made that Colorado passing attack very simplified because it's, hey, we're going to tell you what route to run here, and it's not going to be an expanded playbook. And as you said, it feels like with Liam Cohen, they have brought in an expanded playbook.
100%. So I don't know what they're going to do here, but I do think that this experiment is failing via the draft capital that they traded up for so far. And it's 3 weeks. And like, we don't judge this whole transaction on the first 3 weeks, not even a little bit. And he has looked good at corner. I would just say like this splitting reps as a rookie right now, it's not working. And as a corner, he's the cornerback 3. He's playing in 3 corner sets, but he's not playing in base either. So that's why his snaps are like at 67%. So he's like a cornerback 3 plus Cole Beasley right now.
But he looked sweet on that one catch that he had. 11 different Jaguars got a target in this game. Just quickly, before we finish out with the Texans, what was the split with Bachel Tutin and Travis Etienne? Because I know that Bachel Tutin got an early goal line touchdown.
Yeah, Tutin was out there early in the game, but it was still largely Travis Etienne. I thought Etienne played fine. Obviously got the free touchdown. Tutin got a screen early and then had a touchdown in the red area as well. So, yeah, I think in really deep leagues, you can try the Bachel Tutin stuff. But at the end of the day, he had 1 target and 6 carries in this one. So, like, you're really flirting and you're in a bad spot if you're starting Bachel Tutin. Now, I still think that he makes some good plays. So, hold the line, but I'm not sure if I would call him a starter yet. And then with Travis, you get 16 carries in an offense that creates explosives to that position. I think that right now he's a very strong RB2.
Okay, quick questions on the Texans. 1, are they wasting a really good defense?
Yes. Their defense is very, very good. Yeah.
2, Nico Collins had people in panic mode also after the first 2 weeks. He does close it out here with 11 targets, 8 receptions, 104 yards, and a score. I know that his 50-yarder was wide ass open, and it looked like the Jaguars had 10 players on defense. And then he also coughed up a massive fumble at the end of the game too.
Yeah, the thing with Nico is the Texans offensive line was a stone cold disaster last year, and he was easily a fantasy wide receiver 1. So what is exactly changed here? And like this version of Christian Kirk and the rookies is worse than what Steph Diggs and Tank Dell were offering this last year. So like zoom out, he's one of the absolute best wide receivers in the game. And Stroud, while he's not playing nearly as well as he did before, he's still functional and is going to have some big games. They just could not, like, when the Texans have Josh Hines-Allen and Walker, like those kind of 1-2 punches on the schedule, it's going to look miserable. Like that, like in CJ Stroud, even when he's not like actually pressured, he's feeling the pressure because he can't trust his tackles and his interior play. So I feel totally great about Nico Collins, and then everybody else you can't play.
Are we a Nick Caley watch after very little play action motion? He's someone I was really excited about heading into the season, but it honestly looks worse from a passing standpoint than it did under Bobby Slowick.
Yeah, I need to watch this on all 22, but it was not like oh my God, what a great play design there.
San Francisco 16, Arizona Cardinals 15. A game-winning Eddie Pinheiro field goal as time expires puts those 49ers with Mac Jones back-to-back wins at 3-0 in this game. So Christian McCaffrey, just a cool 27 touches, had 10 receptions, 88 yards, another 17 carries for 52 yards. And somehow, some way, Hayden, you and I go through all these waiver shows, trade shows, rankings. And when it popped up that Ricky Pearsall was wide receiver 35 in consensus rankings this week, and when I got trade questions, it added him as like a throw-in. It made my alarm and sirens go off that he's a prime buy low candidate. And then he goes out here and makes unbelievable catches with 11 targets, 8 receptions, and 117 yards. Catches away from his frame, tight window stuff. Mac Jones throwing it into, let's say, little tiny windows that actually may not have existed, and his wide receivers made big plays on top of it. And on the opposite end, I don't know if the Arizona Cardinals got one big play from anyone in this game. Marvin Harrison Jr. ends with 6 targets, 3 catches for 44 yards. Should have had at least a 30-yarder that could have gone for a 75-yard touchdown. Sure, it was underthrown after Kyler Murray goes to his 3rd or 4th read, but it's almost a punt that's floating in the air with only Fred Warner tracking and tailing it underneath. And then Marvin Harris Jr. just flat out drops it. Just flat out drops it. Okay. He only had 1 catch or 2 catches for about 12 yards in the first half. Trey McBride finally gets his red zone touchdown here. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 43 yards. It was a nice rollout and getting him to about the corner. But like in a gotta have it moment, on 3rd and 6 with just under 2 minutes to go to prevent the 49ers from having a chance at this game, which, by the way, the 49ers kind of gave up by Mac Jones throwing an interception, them not getting it in 4th down inside of the red zone. Like there's a safety that was called that allowed the Cardinals to go up 15-13 on my guy Dominic Pooney in his own end zone. So the 49ers tried to give this game away, but the Cardinals, on the one moment that you had to have it, 3rd and 6, the ball goes in Zay Jones's direction. Like, if you want to paint the picture of a play caller and a quarterback, to me, still not aligning, it is this with Drew Petzing and Kyler Murray, who it still is not working. It's not working to the ability that it should, the effectiveness, the consistency that it should. And like, there's 1 drive per game that Kyler's allowed to air it out down the field, and it looks quite nice. But the other 7 or 8 drives, it's like bang your head on the table over and over and over again. And so I don't know when that's going to get better. And the worst news of all is James Conner is almost certainly out for the season with like a major lower leg injury.
I want to focus on the pass game here and mostly Marvin Harrison, because I think Trey McBride's the tight end 1 in fantasy rest of the season. Like, I feel so good about him, especially if they're not going to be able to run the ball. They're going to just be forced to pass the ball. I think that another big thing is the Cardinals secondary looks way more banged up, like for the long term as well. So maybe the Cardinals are going to have to be like forced into dropbacks. So it really is like, this is a Kyler Murray who's always been on the low end quarterback 1 range for me. And then Marvin Harrison, who I always rank as like the wide receiver 33 in these situations. Like, what the hell is going on between these two? Like, how do you fix this? We're still not going to get the screens and stuff because we shouldn't get the screens to Marvin Harrison. So like, where do we get any level of consistency? Because there's only 2 guys on the team that are consistent, and that's Trey McBride and James Conner. And now you're removing James Conner from the situation. So are we going to see like a bunch of like shot plays and then 3 and outs? And like, that's what this offense is just going to be for, the year 3 in the system.
So if we look at top 10 picks at wide receiver over the last few years, and we're not going to count Travis Hunter because we already had that conversation, full-time wide receivers, let's say, Terry McMillan is getting force-fed the football and looking awesome. He was the number 8 overall selection, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. was the number 4 pick last year. Again, I can't count on him being manufactured touches. That's not his game. They're getting a bit more slot and crossing routes, but he's dropping it, and then Kyler's missing him, and then it's, being equally spread out among lesser talents like Zay Jones or whoever else, Greg Dortch. Then you have Malik Neighbors. Yeah, bona fide wide receiver 1 stud. Rome Odunze, easily becoming the Bears wide receiver 1 right now. Then the year before that, no top 10 picks. Then it's Drake London, who we'll get to that game in a little bit. But at the end of last season, no one had like higher yards per target,
Yeah.
targets per route, especially out of the slot. So this is not the profile of a top 10 wide receiver that is hitting. But at the same time, I just go back to the conversation of maybe this is too simplified, and it's not to this degree, but like Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson just did not fit as play callers. Like Stefanski wants it at a certain time, at a certain rhythm, at a certain depth. And then Deshaun wanted to like paint it outside the lines and also just being a bad football player and a bad dude on top of it. Kyler Murray, good dude, it seems, but he doesn't want to have plays go through their progressions. And then he escapes the pocket, elongates them, can be very fun, but also just can kind of like turn down these throws over the middle of the field that you kind of want a static guy. Yeah, he's short. And then someone who is short, incredibly mobile, who also has had moments where he lets the team down, but then when he brings them up, they let him down. Like I mentioned the Marv one, there was also an Amari DiMercato walk-in touchdown after the James Conner injury that he just flips it out to 3rd and goal, and DiMercato just drops it. So I don't know what to do with this team. Like they are 2-1. They really should have been 3-0. Like Calais Campbell nearly called game on back-to-back weeks after sacking Bryce Young last week to win that game and then forcing the safety to go up 15-13. And that's just not good enough in terms of scoring points in the NFL with 13 offensive points.
And we talked about that, like 3rd and 4+ last year. It was like easily the worst conversion rate in the NFL was Kyler. And they're going to be in those situations a lot more. If it's Trey Benson, who, like, as we saw it today, has the athleticism to rip off some big plays, and like we will see those this year, and that's awesome for him. But also the level of consistency on a down by down basis, you're going to have some 2nd and 12 situations just because the offensive line isn't that good, and Trey Benson is more of a wild card rusher. So yeah, I think this is going to be, they're going to be in a pretty tough spot. You're going to see some ugly performances from Kyler, but he's also so creative, and at least he's back to like the 30 rush yards per game number. So we're seeing that up a little bit this year, which is kind of helpful for fantasy. And I think they're going to have to drop back more, which is going to be good for Kyler in general for fantasy purposes. But I see the same thing, man. Like it's just like 2 different types of offenses and quarterbacks working together. And yeah, it's been frustrating.
I should have simply answered your question by this. If you were to ask me what Marvin Harrison Jr. does great right now at the NFL level, it should be that he's a technician and he has the consistency element to it. But if your hands go from like really good in college to not good in the NFL, then the technician stuff and maybe not creating a ton of separation and not being a primary pass catcher on your team, because that's Trey McBride, you have to catch everything that goes in your direction. And he's not catching everything that's going in his direction right now. Final running back point. Obviously, this is a big boost for Trey Benson, but this isn't going to turn into an 80 to 90% Trey Benson, right? Amari DiMercato immediately came in and got the passing down work. Now he did horrible at it, so maybe that changes. But this is also something that we have seen in the past. And Trey Benson, I am not his biggest fan between the tackles. He gets very tentative there. And if it's blocked up in terms of the pathway, he kind of takes multiple steps and looks really indecisive. But he also has explosive plays. Like, again, 29 of his 42 rushing yards were on a single play here. So I think it's going to be more high variance than what James Conner was giving you, who, by the way, like, it might not have been big. It was 9 carries for 22 yards here for James Conner, 3 catches for 15. But a lot of those, he was being hit behind the line of scrimmage, and making something out of nothing. Paris Johnson didn't play in this game. Michael Williams left for about a quarter. He did return. And then we're also awaiting a Nick Bosa right knee injury update here. That wasn't where his previous big injury was, but it was one of those where it looked like a bunch of weight went on him as he was trying to plant and then kind of walked off very, very gingerly, and we didn't see him for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think just Trey Benson, I think that he'll be starting like the running back 25-ish on the week and kind of move from there. It's like not a locked in RB2 in fantasy, but I can see him ending up that way if he's very involved in the pass game. So what about the 49ers real quick? I mean, it's a hard team to kind of handicap because next week they can get Juwan Jennings and Brock Purdy back. And then all of a sudden, like, this game looks meaningless. Just Ricky Pearsall is just a good football player. And
yeah, I mean, they don't have George Kittle. They don't have any of these guys. So if the ball's not going to Ricky Pearsall and CMC, who is it going to? Like, Kendrick Bourne came down with some difficult catches. Sky Moore had one, but he also was the person that fielded the punt inside the 5-yard line to set him up for that safety. Like, you're just running out of bodies here. It is so funny to me, though, Again, the CMC stuff, 27 touches, and then B-Rob pops in for 2.
If he dies, he dies. That's the philosophy of CMC.
If he dies, he dies. And if he plays, then we win our fantasy matchups. Next up for them, it's the Jaguars, then the Rams, and then the Buccaneers in their next 3 games. It kind of sounds like Brock Purdy is going to play next week.
Yeah, so it sounds like it.
That's a big boost for them. And just shout out to Mac Jones. A pretty bad fourth quarter with like multiple mistakes and that stuff, but even being able to bounce back and make some difficult throws to lead them for the victory at the end is pretty sweet. Minnesota Vikings 48, Cincinnati Bengals 10. Hayden, this is the backup quarterback brawl, and clearly the Vikings came out on top on that one.
Yeah, which defense do you trust more? The Minnesota Vikings at home. Was pretty much summed this one up. I mean, this game was over 9 minutes in, like once we had the first pick six for Jake Browning, and then there was like another sloppy, just crazy plays where Minnesota just keeps returning balls into their own end zone. This thing was largely over. Early on in the game, though, Carson Wentz looked good. He ended up throwing a touchdown to Josh Oliver. They got Justin Jefferson the ball immediately, and they marched down the field. In the middle of the game, Carson Wentz kind of was in a lull, but the ground game was consistently moving the ball, and you get 16 carries for Jordan Mason for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. He wasn't a total 99% snaps bell cow, but he was definitely playing more than enough out there. Xavier Scott is the RB2, my guy from the preseason. He had a couple of explosive plays in this one, I will note that. But this is Jordan Mason, ride it till you can't. And that's going to be at least for the next 3 games with Aaron Jones on IR. And I just think that Jordan Mason's a better football player than Aaron Jones is at this point. So it was good to see they got Darisaw back in this one. Next week, they'll probably get their center back and Ryan Kelly, and it will be Carson Wentz. Once again, he didn't do really anything wrong. Like, obviously no turnovers in this one, took a couple sacks, like missed a couple throws. Definitely wasn't a perfect game from Carson Wentz, but it was a whole lot better than what they had in the first 2 games. So afterwards, they said that Carson Wentz deserved another start, which kind of makes me think that, this is a choice that they're making, and it's the right choice. Like right now, Carson Wentz is better than JJ McCarthy, and that's going to be good news for Justin Jefferson when the games get closer. TJ Hawkinson finally pops up into fantasy relevancy. So yeah, they got exactly what they want. And there was a report from Wolfson who was saying that maybe JJ McCarthy doesn't play until after the bye, which would be week 7. So it was interesting to me that McCarthy was on the sideline with no boot and was just hanging out. But I think that they should keep playing Carson Wentz because they give him the best chance to win football games.
Do you think that JJ McCarthy goes on the trip with them to London and Dublin over the next 2 weeks?
Who knows? Who knows at this point?
I think you really covered it with the Vikings. I mean, even Justin Jefferson finally getting some 7 targets, 5 receptions.
They didn't play in the fourth quarter. It's like Jefferson had 6 targets in the first half, 1 target in the third quarter, and then the game was so over that like you can't even like take the box score for Justin Jefferson. It's going to be better for Justin Jefferson and Carson Wentz when the game's closer. Okay,
let's talk about the Bengals here because, we did get 7 games of Jake Browning starting back in 2023. And 5 of those 7, the dude had top 10 quarterback performances, at least in fantasy football. This was furthest from the case. Obviously, You're facing a Brian Flores defense is not fun. Is there anything, and it's almost impossible, is there anything you can extrapolate from like what a Jake Browning offense is going to look like and what that means for Chase Brown, who, by the way, gets 3 yards on 10 carries here. Yeah. And then Jamar Chase, 5 for 50 on 6 targets. And then T. Higgins, 1 for 15 on 2 targets.
I'll try to take this player by player. With Jake Browning, this game was so lopsided so early because of that scramble drill, pick 6. There was even just like a blitz panic on the first drive before that. You can just tell he was under pressure. Minnesota, I always bring this up. There's such a unique defense that I don't even like to extrapolate, even when good teams face the Vikings. But with this team and their offensive line is miserable. And they beat up on bad teams. They just go after you. So to me, this was a pretty predictable one. At the same time, Browning, 0 scrambles. His ADOT was only 6 yards down the field. I think that Jamar Chase is going to survive, and I think he's going to have some big games when they're not playing the Vikings and they're down huge scores. He had a 28% target share, which is like in line for typical stuff. He got a bubble screen early. He's had a floor game. I think there will be bigger games for Jamar Chase. I think that T. Higgins and Chase Brown stuff is like very volatile right now. T. Higgins, they gave him a jump ball and he just missed it. He took a big hit over the middle where I thought like maybe he was even concussed, but that was not the case. But at the end of the day, only a 9% target share last week on the Jake Browning dropbacks. I was at 15% target share, which is just a lot lower than it is with Joe Burrow. Maybe that's small sample size stuff. Maybe it's just they feel comfortable just spamming Jamar Chase underneath. But either way, not good for T. Higgins. The team total is going to be way lower than it usually is. And then with Chase Brown, like you said, the offensive line is such a disaster right now that he had -5 yards before contact. And he's a fine player, kind of an explosive player, but he's just not a consistent player.
He was really good in like the spacing of a Joe Burrow offense. Like he was benefiting from what Joe Burrow and the passing attack brought to the table.
For sure. And when you have to like actually run it right up the gut and stuff, I just don't trust him or this offensive line. So, I mean, he's hard because he still played most of the snaps when the game was close. Like at the end, like Taj Brooks got in there. Samaje Perine, I think it was like a thumb injury. He was walking to the locker room once this game was completely out of hand. But yeah, the Chase Brown stuff is going to be difficult because that offensive line is not going to get better. And I think he's probably going to be like RB 25-ish in my rankings, but I don't think that there's a pathway to him being a top 12 fantasy running back in this offense.
Okay. I have a couple questions because even if you said like it will get better for Jamar Chase and this is a floor game, and obviously Chase Brown isn't going to have 3 rushing yards in every game from here on out, I think it's worth a conversation that even if the value is decreased after week 3 than it was after week 2 for these guys, that you should still sell Chase Brown and T. Higgins at this point, because this actually might be the peak of their value when you look at their schedule over the next few weeks. It's the Broncos and the Lions and the Packers over the next 3 games. I'm not saying that they play defense the same way as the Minnesota Vikings, but Broncos are going to be looking for revenge. That's on Monday Night Football. The Lions are going to blitz the heck out of you. You better have an answer. And then we get the Packers on the road after that. Those are brutal 4 defenses to go up against in a row.
Yeah. And then I think for Jamar Chase, I would put him after your Amon-Ra's, after your Nico Collins is, like all the guys that were going, like he's now more of the wide receiver 13, 14. And if this continues and there's a bigger sample size, then all of a sudden that might be the wide receiver 16 and the wide receiver 20. So very, very volatile situation. I don't think that they'll ever trade Jameis Winston, but like if this sours, like would they be a team that would want to make a move? And I think that would be interesting, but that's purely wish casting at this point. They're 2-1, so they have a little bit more of a leash here to kind of figure this one out.
Yeah, but it's 3 months out of Joe Burrow. You know,
we know where this is going.
Seattle Seahawks 44, New Orleans Saints 13. The Saints tried to go for it on their first drive, opening on a 4th and 2 at midfield. Alvin Kamara has his target swatted away, and then it's just a total rout. JSN early touchdown and a left rollout for Sam Darnold. That drive was extended because of a Brian Brissy stupid unsportsmanlike penalty. Then after the Saints get stuffed on 2nd and 2, then 3rd and 1, and then a 4th and 1 false start, Torrey Horton 95-yard punt return touchdown. Next series, Seahawks block a punt. So Kenneth Walker III gets a goal line touchdown. Olave at that point, and we'll get into it actually at halftime with him. Anyways, Torrey Horton on the next drive for the Seahawks gets his 2nd touchdown, a beautiful touch throw by Sam Darnold on the outside shoulder of his that only he has a chance of getting it. That brings us, after another 2nd Kenneth Walker touchdown run, to 35-3. And at that point, with 35 points, the Seattle Seahawks had only run the ball 7 times. And like if we go to halftime up 38-6, they had 20 snaps on offense and 38 total points with 177 yards. I mean, it's pretty crazy. They didn't play the entire 4th quarter. Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, JSN, Kenneth Walker III. At that point for Kenneth Walker, who finished with 16 carries for 38 yards and 2 scores, and then another catch for 12 yards. He had, again, 17 touches. Another running back only had 1 at that point. I do want to bring up that he had 2 explosive runs of about 12 to 15 yards that were taken away. And then I assure you, if he was able to play the 4th quarter, you would see a higher yards per carry here. But this game was like totally donezo. The Seahawks totally swarmed the Saints offense. But even if that's the case, you and I keep talking about how the Saints offense can be a little frisky and feisty and garbage time stuff because they still scammy. It's my favorite type of scam, man. Chris Olave, a career high 10 receptions, only 57 yards, but 14 targets. And then Juwan Johnson, 8 targets, 6 receptions for 51 yards. So they were out of it from the second series, but still the Saints somehow put up a couple of points here and there. And then the Seattle Seahawks obviously smashed.
Yeah, I think that the standout here to me would just be more confidence in the Chris Olave stuff. So obviously you're not going to get game script this completely lopsided, but like you said, career high in receptions, and the ADOT just continues to go lower and lower and lower. And this is a brand new offense for them. They're going to play a lot of fast, or a lot of plays, because they just play with so much pace. So even in a game where it was a dreadful game, they still had 27 carries and 41 pass attempts. That is a ton of plays when you didn't even really had a chance in the entire game. So yeah, I think Chris Olave, he was a great buy low call for us, and hopefully he stays healthy this year. And then same thing with Juwan Johnson, which is like an automatic top 5 tight end, especially in full PPR. With so many guys banged up right now, like those two guys are focal points of the offense, and even Alvin Kamara is like holding on for dear life.
Do you have any other questions about this game? Like JSN, it came in that he was questionable with an illness, and then it just dominates in the first 2 drives. Like,
how is he getting so open? Like, what's going on with the JSN stuff? Like, the numbers are ridiculous.
The way at full speed that he runs across the field while staying on a string with Sam Darnold and staying exactly on the yard marker and not kind of veering and weaving and all this type of stuff. To me, that stands out when watching him versus these other wide receivers.
That makes sense. And that's good news for Sam Darnold, who that was what Jordan Addison was doing very well. Obviously, JSN and Jordan Addison are different styled players, but they're getting a little bit closer just how they're using JSN. So yeah, I mean, another good day for Sam Darnold, man. Like, if you're going to be in these positive situations where you're not chasing a bunch of points and the offensive line's holding down the fort. I mean, the Saints defense is really bad, especially when they don't have Chase Young, but he can rip some nice out routes. That's for sure.
They're on Thursday Night Football this week against the Arizona Cardinals. So there's a chance that the Seahawks here are 3-1. That is on the road. Again, a short week. Who knows what that means for the Zach Charbonnet and Ken Walker dynamic. I swear so many people just hate watch and hate picked Kenneth Walker that they don't want this to happen. The dude scored 2 touchdowns and got 50 yards and got 17 touches. And when he left, only one other running back touched the ball 1 time. So this is what we get. When you're up 38-6 at halftime and only of 20 plays in the first half, you're not going to get a whole bunch of rushing yards. You got 2 goal line touchdowns. Enjoy it. Bathe in it. Let it soak all over you. And then hopefully on Thursday, it's a closer game and some of the long runs that were taken away in this game aren't penalties.
Yeah, I'm guessing Charbonnet is not going to play on a short week. He was doubtful in this one, but we shall see.
Chargers 23, Broncos 20. We were all just years and maybe a decade early on this LA Chargers team. They are 3-0. And to break it down is our buddy, Brentley Weissman. Brentley, talk me through this one, because I see Justin Herbert with 47 passing attempts, 300 yards. I see Omarion Hampton popping up with 19 carries, 70 yards on top of another 6 for 59 in the air. Give us the details.
Yeah, guys, it was a very tight game. 2 obviously very good teams. But to me, the story of the game was the emergence of Omarion Hampton. Josh, you mentioned it. He looked really, really good. And first, tough news with Najee Harris. Obviously, you hate to see that. Didn't look like it's going to be a minor injury. It looks like it's going to be a pretty major lower body injury. But Omarion Hampton, you mentioned it. 70 yards on the ground, 59 through the air. He looks like what a first round running back should look like. Big, explosive, ran with vision, patience. I think he's going to be able to take the Chargers running game and make this team way more balanced. Through the first 2 weeks, the team really has been relying on Herbert, which has been great. But now with Hampton being the focal point of the running game, look for this offense to be much more balanced and much more efficient.
And what about Omarion in the receiving game? Because this was the team that was number 1 in neutral pass rate, which I think is you got Justin Herbert playing like an MVP. Let's just keep doing that. But if that means that Omarion Hampton's catching balls in the flats and looking explosive that way, and you're kind of taking the element, which I thought was his big weakness, was kind of vision between the tackles, where there was a little bit more hit and miss. But if you're catching the ball out in space and you look like a first rounder out in space, then I think that's a good middle ground for the situation, right?
And Brentley, just a quick note on that, because Omarion Hampton looks like a Greek god. He's chiseled out of stone. He's super fast in a straight line, despite being, 6'1", 225 pounds. I do think the receiving aspect of his game at UNC was a bit overlooked. He had 29 receptions when attached to Drake May, then another 38 back in 2024. So it's not like we, should perceive him as this is the only game he's going to get receiving work. This should actually be a huge boost for him moving forward.
100%. A lot of he had, I think it was 6 targets, 5 receptions. Like he was absolutely Justin Herbert's security blanket in the receiving game. And a lot of it weren't just dump offs. Like they had him run routes. Right. And so I think that's really unique. And then just in terms of his usage, he was the bell cow. I mean, he rarely came off the field after Najee's injury. I think Hassan Haskins rotated in a little bit.
Single touch.
Yeah, he was in it for a few snaps, but it was majority Omarion Hampton. So this is a 3-9 running back who can run in the tackles, run outside, and catch the football.
Okay, for the receivers, just looking at this, all 3 get home. All 3 are top 36 guys once again. Now, the order of those 3 continues to throw me for a loop here because Ladd McConkey has the fewest production and the fewest targets in this
just 4 for 41.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was there anything obviously we have Pat Surtain in coverage here. So I'm not sure exactly who is matched up with who, how we got the explosive plays from Quentin Johnson. Keenan Allen, I saw in the red area making big plays too. So how are we supposed to handicap this one? Because in theory, Ladd McConkey is supposed to be a 30% target share and a total stud. Through 3 games, it's at 21%. What the hell is going on between these 3 receivers?
Man, I mean, look, I was the biggest QJ hater in the world the past 2 years, but this guy has definitely figured it out. And I think Herbert has a lot of faith in him down the field. As of right now, though, you have to go with the assumption that QJ is Herbert's primary option in the passing game. He's making big plays. He's running crisp routes. He's catching the football. He looks like a legit playmaker. Now, Ladd, he dealt with the Broncos nickel corners, and they were got up in his grill. I think that he was kind of struggling through some contact throughout the route. Their timing was a little off throughout the day, so that's kind of what disrupted Ladd. But then you have Keenan, who's also kind of killing it between the short, intermediate areas of the field as well. And him and Herbert have really good chemistry and rhythm. So it's not the best for fantasy managers in terms of how you negotiate the 3 receivers' target share and their production. But as of right now, I mean, look, QJ is he's the guy in the offense.
So for Keenan, I know his touchdown was actually a sick Justin Herbert play where he was basically in the grasp. He's able to escape it while rolling to his left, throws it across his body, insane strength, and takes a massive hit afterwards. Just crazy stuff. I did want to ask about Herbert. Yeah. Okay. I see 5 sacks for 30 yards. Yeah. Is that a Denver Broncos stat, or is that something we actually should worry about here with, some of these backup Chargers offensive linemen that have been filling in as starters?
A mix of both. I'll say, so the Chargers lost 2 offensive linemen throughout the game, Mekhi Becton and Trey Pipkins. So their right guard and right tackle. So both of them were out for good portions of the game, and they were getting their butts kicked. I mean, the Broncos, John Franklin Myers, Zach Allen, they were teeing off on the right side. However, Bonito, to your point, he was winning cleanly one-on-one against Joe Alt. I think that was a bit of a concern. So Joe Alt was fantastic through the first 2 weeks, but Bonito clearly won this matchup. I mean, he was in the backfield almost every play, it felt like. Herbert had no time in the first half and really kind of not until the fourth quarter when he was able to get going because he looked uncomfortable. The Broncos were teeing off on this offensive line, and it was tough sledding out there for them.
At this point, Nick Bonito is one of the most underrated players.
He's unreal.
That dude is just unreal.
Aranda Gadsden even pops up here for 546 on 7 targets. I think Aranda Gadsden might have been inactive in week 1 and maybe also in week 2. Yeah. So it shows you how many passing game weapons the Chargers have and why we think it's not going to stop in terms of their pass rate over expected. Okay. The Denver Broncos are 1-2. The Denver Broncos made waves last year, in the opening 3 or 4 games. Bo Nix did not look great last season, but then they clicked. They got the shot plays working. They got the manufactured stuff working near the line of scrimmage. Bo Nix in this game, 14 of 25 for 153 yards, does get a touchdown here. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins has a rushing touchdown that was actually a behind the line of scrimmage throw to him on top of it. why is this Broncos offense so stuttered when it comes to their passing attack right now?
It's as if Sean Payton, who has preached his faith and belief in Bo Nix, doesn't really have faith and belief in Bo Nix. A lot of the passes, again, are, rollouts and a bunch of kind of exotic looks. There's no traditional 3-step drops and getting through progressions. Like, it's very, like, they're calling the game as if he has handcuffs on their quarterback, and that's a major issue. Bo had an okay day. I think a lot of the stats you'll see aren't on the box score. He missed 3 deep shots, and I mean, like, missed by an inch. Each one hit fingertips, two to Mims, 1 to Cortland Sutton. So the plays were there to be had. But Nix right now, he's just feeling the pressure and immediately wanting to jump pass or just make some incredible athletic play with his legs. He's not trusting his feet. And so he's not getting set with a proper base and being able to deliver the ball.
Always an issue.
Yep. And it was bad today. And I'm a Bo Nix guy, but it was bad today. Again, he had 3 real opportunities to connect down the field, but all 3 of the times his feet weren't set. And so just
he needs to find like this Goldilocks zone, Brentley.
Yep.
Like, last year there were times where he didn't move enough.
Mm-hmm.
There were other times he moved way too much, and both would impact, the placement. And it sounds like with this one, he's moving a lot. And that actually shows up, Hayden, in the carries and the scrambles with 8 carries for 33 yards here.
Yeah, he'll always do that. So like and he can throw the ball very well down the field. Like, I think he's got underrated like arm strength. But the problem is the 52-yarder to Cortland Sutton was that same bullshit rollout with the freaking fake pitch to throw it to the other side of the field where you just have a crossing route. And if there's a miscommunication in the secondary, or if the backside corner is not being disciplined, then you have a chunk play. Well, guess what? That's like a half-field shot play designed by Sean Payton and not a sign that the quarterback is making a second-year leap. And that's what it kind of was last year. I thought it was impressive that he was able to make these huge throws down the field. But a lot of the stuff is just like half-field reads, and if that's not going to go, then you scramble. And we're not supposed to be saying that in the second year. That's a good thing as a rookie. In the second year, if you were going to actually go somewhere with this, we need some more down-to-down consistency in the normal drop-back game. That's for sure.
So Sutton had 118 yards in a score. The next leading receiver was RJ Harvey with 3 catches for 14. Then Troy Franklin, everyone's favorite pickup, for 8 yards. Marvin Mims, everyone's favorite gadget player, for 4 yards. I saw him diving all over the place for these receptions that were just out of reach. At least in the rushing game, we still know, Brentley, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it is J.K. Dobbins, and then RJ Harvey only pops in for 2 carries here.
Yeah, no, it was the J.K. Dobbins show again on the ground. He was definitely the bell cow. RJ Harvey, I mean, even when he gets the touches, it's just not there yet, I'd say. So still kind of waiting for that to pop. But J.K. Dobbins, he had the long, I think it was a 59-yard kind of, back lateral, call it whatever you want to call it, behind the line of scrimmage run. And then he had another impressive run in the late in the third quarter, showed some wiggle, showed some burst, broke a tackle. So J.K. Dobbins looks good. I think he is worthy of more carries, honestly. I think all he had was, I want to say maybe just 11 carries. Yeah, that's not enough. I feel like I would treat him more as a bell cow back in terms of the number of touches he gets, because he's creating when he gets an opportunity.
Hayden, Chargers 3-0. Their next games, the Giants, the Commanders, and the Dolphins. How far can this thing go?
I mean, I think that Herbert's going to be in the MVP discussion. Right now, he's on pace for nearly 5,000 yards. And I mean,
that's a Greg Roman offense that everyone was so terrified of.
It's 4,800 to be exact. That's a lot. And if you're going to be, potentially 5-1, 6-0, we're going to get Justin Herbert in the MVP conversation. So yeah, the offensive line remains a worry, but Justin Herbert is taking a step, and the downfield stuff was always something. And this even goes back to Oregon, Brentley, as you know, he always was able to do it. It never seemed like he was aggressive enough. And maybe that's just something that, like, when, Harbaugh is just like sending
motivation,
letters,
confidence.
Being like, you are the best thing I've ever seen in my life. Keep making these. And I think maybe that is like motivating
100%.
him to make these downfield throws. And like, to me, that was like where Herbert was always in like that maybe next tier down from like the elite guys. But if he's gonna be super aggressive, then I do think that the gap like suddenly closes.
Yeah, like he was aggressive as a rookie. I remember he would make all kinds of down the field throws, really, really good, just streaks and Hail Marys type stuff. And then, over the past few seasons, it's definitely tamed that, I'd say. And so I think now with Harbaugh, words of affirmation, kind of giving him that love, he's believing in himself and he has weapons around him to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So did we find out Justin Herbert's love language is words of affirmation?
I think it must be.
Or maybe his new girlfriend's probably not.
That can help too.
That's probably
That can
getting your
help too.
confidence up. I'll say that.
The Broncos do have a get-right game next week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. Also at 3-0, the Indianapolis Colts
Wow.
win 41-20 over the Tennessee Titans on the road. Sure, against a depleted 0-3 Titans team. But man, Brentley, I mean, in the first few weeks, we saw a really pristine offense from Shane Steichen. This one didn't need to be as good. I mean, Daniel Jones still threw for 228 yards on just 18 completions, does get a passing touchdown on top of it. But I'm sure the conversation of the day is Jonathan Taylor just breaking the slate with 17 carries, 102 yards, 3 scores, including a 46-yarder, and then just adds another 3 catches on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, guys, Shane Steichen is just in his bag. He really has this offense cooking. He has Daniel Jones playing at such an efficient level. And, through the first 2 weeks, I thought maybe there would be some fool's gold a little in there. Maybe it's not sustainable, but this looks very sustainable. A lot of Daniel Jones' pass production is not just quick dump offs, quick, getting the ball out to the JT or Tyler Warren and letting them cook after the catch. He's throwing the ball down the field. I mean, it's not going to show up in the box score because Alec Pierce ended up dropping it, but he uncorked a 60-yarder like in the air. And it was perfectly thrown to Alec Pierce, who ended up, dropping it because he landed it really bad on his shoulder. But Daniel Jones is pushing the ball down the field. He's not turning the ball over, and he's making plays with his legs. I mean, he had a really impressive scramble, escaping pressure. I think it was on the 3rd and long, escape pressure, and then use his legs to get upfield and get the first down. Like, he's playing really well, and this offense is humming.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. There was 2 screens for 25 yards, not even that many RPOs at all, and the numbers are there. So this is just like standard drop back stuff. But I've noticed that a lot of the downfield shots in the previous games were kind of by design, where you're kind of just reading this on one half, but you're making the throws. And credit to Daniel Jones is he's like sliding in the pocket, like subtly, like right before he sets his feet. And like that before would be like lateral strip sack. Remember all the fumble issues that he would have? Where now he's like moving in the pocket to like reset at a much better level. And then obviously when you have the 3 wide receivers plus Adonai Mitchell plus Tyler Warren plus Jonathan Taylor, who I think I would take maybe first overall now if I was doing a fantasy draft. It'd be like him and Puka, like neighbors maybe.
What about our guy CMC?
Yeah, he's balling.
CMC is right there in the mix too. I think I have a little bit more faith in Jonathan Taylor, but I love CMC. But like you said, it feels sustainable because it's not like a bunch of coverage bust in screen stuff where or against only bad teams. He did it against the Broncos last week as well. So, I mean, the sample size, we are 3 for 3 convincingly.
Yeah, right.
And at some point, it's just like, this looks like a team that could be a top 10 offense.
It does help when you open the game with a pick 6 against a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward. I will add, the Colts did finally punt.
Yeah.
However, Hayden, they still have only punted once.
It's crazy.
Just one time. So they have one
God.
punt through 3 games in the NFL.
It's crazy. The last thing I'll say about Daniel Jones, just flagging it right now, this guy needs to learn how to slide. I mean, straight up, like he is just so reckless when he runs the ball, diving head first, like taking shots, calling it now. Like if that continues, he could get injured. Like it was pretty reckless today.
I'm happy for Shane Steichen. Like he did his stuff with Gardner Minshew and totally reshaped that offense. And I think nearly took them to the playoffs. And now he's just, finding someone to execute the offense that he wants to and get the gimmies and also get the downfield stuff on top of it.
Yep.
Okay.
Coach of the year.
Let's talk about the Titans. Cam Ward, 23 of 38, 219, 1 touchdown, 4 sacks taken. Is Brian Callahan the likely first head coach fired here?
It was egregious, guys. It was truly painful to watch Brian Callahan try to manage this game. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys saw it or maybe saw it on social media, but it was a 4th and 1. He didn't know what to do, literally looked lost. The Colts called a timeout. He still didn't make up his mind. He called a timeout, decided to go for, I think it was like a 57-yard field goal, whatever it was. The team gets a delay of game coming out of 2 consecutive timeouts, pushes the ball back. I think it's now like a 62, 63-yard field goal. Of course, the guy misses it. Just complete amateur hour. I mean, it was pretty brutal. And it's a bummer because my take watching Cam Ward is this guy has something. Like, I watched Michael Penix today, abysmal. Cam Ward,
so bad.
Like, you see the talent, his ability just to layer balls down the field. It looks effortless. And yes, the Colts got after them today. I mean, the offensive line for the Titans obviously isn't good. I think they were down J.C. Latham as well, so that didn't help. But Cam Ward's fearlessness and toughness to stand in the pocket, refuse to bail, and deliver strikes even when pressure's on his face, you could work with that. There's something there. So I came away actually pretty impressed with Cam Ward. The pick was bad. That was just a bad pick. He didn't see Kenny Moore. You know, that's going to happen as a rookie. But Cam Ward, there's things that you can hang your hat on there.
Hayden, I guess my concern with it is, for one, Cam Ward is a high variance player, but has some awesome traits. But two, when that is in a bad environment during your rookie year, you can pick up bad habits that then, as we have seen with other quarterbacks, that carries over into year 2 and year 3. And the other part of this is oftentimes you hear that, oh, a rookie quarterback extends the longevity of a head coach. It really does the opposite. Because if you can't get it going with that, then the ownership is obviously going to choose the quarterback and say, we have to get someone in here that actually creates an environment for that number 1 overall pick. And we are drifting already dangerously close to that direction. And next up for the Titans is the Houston Texans defense on the road.
This is the Caleb Williams discussion from the rookie season, where like we didn't know it at the time what the Bears situation was going to be, and this was a predictable situation for the Titans. But he's going to get fired eventually. I think that he should be the first coach to go, and then we're going to be back in the same spot where we can point to the wow throws on tape, and we can see there's going to be development eventually here with Cam Ward, but there's going to be some uncertainty, and then we have to get the right pieces around him. And you got to have to find an offensive coach that wants to go sign up for this experiment. Obviously, they got that with Ben Johnson for Caleb, but are we going to get that? Okay, who?
Joe Brady.
That would be great.
Joe Brady, next head coach of the Tennessee Titans.
I would have loved that.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
That passing game
sounds more promising than what they have now.
That scheme with Cam Ward, that would be a great fit.
I guess the concern here, because we still have to play, 15 more weeks of fantasy football on top of this, Brentley. We still get 38 dropbacks, if not more, from Cam Ward. And Calvin Ridley gets 7 targets, only 1 catch for 27. It feels like his catch rate has been abysmal, both for his problems and some passing problems. Which side did it fall on today?
Oh, it fell on Calvin Ridley. I mean, he was brutal today. He was absolutely brutal today. Had a drop in the end zone, had another drop early in the first quarter. He looks like almost disinterested. Like it's not working. And very clearly you see the connection that Elik Amamayer, God, I always forget his last name. Ayamanor and Cam Ward, their connection, they're starting to build. DK, the other rookie, he starting to look good. Like, I think they're definitely starting to mix in some of the younger receivers because the Calvin Ridley thing is not working. It was reminiscent of Brian Thomas last week. Those same kind of vibes where it's like, something is off. Something's not clicking here. Hopefully they figure it out because Calvin Ridley is talented. I'm not doubting his talent, but so far it's just not clicking between him and Cam Ward.
He will not be a Tennessee Titan in 2026 looking at his contract. So he's one of these guys at the deadline. Do you dare trade him away? But then at that point, it's Cam Ward with who? But if this is a different version of Calvin Ridley, then I don't want to sell that. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do in fantasy because he can easily on one of these plays from Cam Ward have a 60-yard post touchdown, but he's caught 38% of his targets.
That's terrible.
He's getting looks and the talent's there. So it's too early to give up on him. But the fact is the fact, he hasn't looked good.
And we'll do a deep dive on Alec Ayumanor. At least I will for Stats versus Film this week, because I know we get a ton of questions on that. And we always bring up Tony Pollard. I mean, it's tough to argue when you get 18 touches, and this is one of the weeks, Hayden, that he got into the end zone, just no room to run. Like Dan Moore has not been that great of a signing at left tackle, and I know that was supposed to be J.C. Latham to right tackle, but also when J.C. Latham doesn't play, then you're having the worst player at left tackle. Okay, we'll close out our segment with Brentley here with the Washington Marcus Mariota is putting up 41 points against the Las Vegas Raiders, who scored 24. Brentley, your favorite player of all time in Marcus Mariota, a cool 15 of 21, 207, 1 touchdown. And then both Jerry McNichols and Mariota and Bill Krosky-Merritt get a rushing score on top of this. What does this offense look like in comparison to Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, I'd say definitely more scaled back. You know, they didn't ask Marcus to do a ton because he didn't need to do a ton. You know, for me, the main story for this game was the Commanders' ability to dominate both sides of the line of scrimmage. I mean, they completely bullied the Raiders on both sides of the trenches. I think they sacked Geno Smith 5 times. They completely stuffed Ashton Jeanty. And on the flip side, their offensive line, the Commanders' offensive line, did an outstanding job protecting Marcus and then really paving ways for, you know, their kind of stable running backs. Bill Krosky-Merritt did well stuff. Jimmy McNichols busted a long run. Chris Rodriguez got busy. I mean, like, this team really imposed their will on the Raiders, and I thought it was a really good, gutsy win without their quarterback.
Yeah, the hard part, just looking at the running back stuff without Eckler, is it was dead ass even, you know, and it was Chris Rodriguez early. Yeah.
And then I know McNichols still had 4 carries.
What a run.
He had a 60-yard touchdown run, which was sick. And by the way, McNichols had some good stuff last season, so this isn't like a big surprise. But then Bill does go out there, and I'm excited to watch him because I know some people were just mentioning Brittany that he looks like a really good runner for this team. But I'm surprised that we go from, you know, the B-Rob trade to the Eckler injury, and then they still, it seems like just the identity they want to have is rotating 3 guys.
Yeah, it was a weird kind of order of the rotation. Chris Rodriguez started the game, and then he was also their kind of like goal line back early on in the game. But then it was like almost like no rhyme or reason, they put Bill Krosky-Merritt in, and it's evident. Like, you see the explosiveness, you see his ability to bounce off tackles, you see his ability to really put his foot on the ground and get upfield. Like, it's a different level of juice than Rodriguez and McNichols, and their reluctancy to really treat him like their featured running back is interesting to me. McNichols, I mean, yeah, he had a long run. That was awesome. It was really perfectly blocked up. You know, he didn't have to do too much. So I just kind of hit the hole and go. But the way they really kind of rotate their running backs, I feel like there's no rhyme or reason. You know, it's almost just like, hey guys, like, this is the order it's going to be, and this is the order it's going to be.
Yeah, and then obviously Deebo gets 3 carries in there as well. You're going to have both quarterbacks in there. So this is where I was talking about, where like it's going to be a committee, and there will be some moments here. And I like
they score
the
points.
best, but they score points. But it's, you know, we're going to have some dud weeks out there. And I think that we should all know where this is going.
And on the Deebo note, I wouldn't panic everyone out there. I mean, they were up 34-10 in the third quarter, so why pull all the Deebo Samuel levers? It was nice for Terry McLaurin to pop up here for 3 catches for 74. I did want to ask on the Raiders end. First, let's start with the rushing, okay? This is now 3 straight games where Ashton Jeanty has negative yards before contact. I think he has 145 yards on the ground this year or something to that effect, but he's actually run for 147 of them all season long. This just is an unfair environment for a player. And I don't know what this week was, but like last week, for example, he has to make the right read, then make someone and force a missed tackle at the line of scrimmage, and then do that again at the second level. And this Raiders offensive line probably has an argument for being worse in the NFL through 3 weeks.
Yeah, I tweeted. I mean, it was a brutal watch, and I have Jeanty in my fantasy team, so I was not happy. He gets the ball in literally every single play. He's hit behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage. And, you know, he's not the most lateral, elusive running back in the world. He's really more north-south. And you can't get north-south if there's no hole. You know, he's not like LaShawn McCoy who can stop on a dime, reverse field, and have it be that. It's never been Jeanty's game. And so his like play style mixed with his offensive line is not working. Colton Miller today, who I thought was supposed to be their kind of one redeeming quality player in front of and on the offensive line, he was horrible. He was awful today. He got his butt kicked all game. The Genty just had nowhere to go. And for me, it's like, even when he's in the open field, he's just so always wanting to find contact. Make a guy miss. You did it in Boise State. Make a guy miss. So something is not right. I'm hoping that it gets better, but as of right now, I don't really see how it can get better.
Yeah, he's under 10% target share on the season. Once again, this was like how it was last week.
That's a big deal.
He lost a lot of pass game snaps to both guys, Zamir White and Dylan Laube, which you just don't want to hear. How does this get better? They're not trading for an offensive lineman. Is he going to play more snaps in passing game situations? It sounds like we can be hopeful for that, but Chip Kelly's kind of said like, hey, this is in 2010 where we just give one guy the ball a million times. So he's going to have better
even
games,
the running backs in the passing game, like Laube has one target and it's Geno Smith launching passes down the field. That's not a part of the game plan. The Geno passing stuff is quite odd. If this is correct on Next Gen Stats, Brentley, he had a time to throw of 3.82 seconds today with an intended air yards per attempt at 10.4. That is both the longest other than Sam Darnold, and then obviously holding on to the football the longest today. And then the box score is even weirder, where it's Trey Tucker, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 145 yards, and 3 scores, helping absolutely no one. Then Jacoby Myers, 3 for 63. And Brock Bowers, 4 for 38.
Yeah, it was a weird game for Geno. I mean, when he had time, he was able to push the ball down the field, and that was all fine and dandy. I mean, him and Trey Tucker, and that's been building, by the way. They've kind of been showing some chemistry in the first 2 weeks. Today, obviously, kind of erupted, but they have a real connection. And Trey Tucker, he's a good player. He's quick, fast. He can win all 3 levels of the field. He had a long touchdown today. I thought was really impressive. 61-yarder, kind of in garbage time. But Geno, man, it was just a tough game for him. He got pressured 19 times. They were living in the backfield. He was running for his life. I mean, the plays he was making, escaping the pressure, I thought was actually really impressive. That's probably part of the reason why he's holding the ball so long. He's just trying to run away from some pass rushers. But it was a very tough day overall for the Raiders passing game, even though the stats may not show that. A lot of those numbers were kind of when the game was already put away.
Yeah, with Jacoby, 63 yards, copy paste that's automatic for him. Bowers and Trey Tucker are fascinating to me. I went back and watched Trey Tucker this offseason because there was somebody was going to win the downfield role in this offense, and obviously you had the 2 rookies, and one of them could actually run downfield, and then the other one can't. So we eliminated him quickly. Trey Tucker, I went back and watched him. He got open down the field a lot, and that was in an offense that could not push the ball down the field because of the quarterback play. Geno Smith is a very aggressive quarterback, sometimes to a fault. I don't think we should expect anything like this, but the fact that he is like the full-time player next to Jacoby Myers and has the speed that he has with this quarterback, he's going to be one of the better and best ball picks. He's already paid off his price tag off this one game, but I think that like in a deeper league, like it does make sense during the bye weeks that if you want to pray for a touchdown, I think this defense is going to be really weak. This offensive line is not going to be great running the ball. So I think you're going to get some like weird game scripts, and Geno Smith in garbage time will sling it. We saw that last week against the Chargers where just like under pressure late in the game, we're just going to still throw that ball down the field and live with the pros and the cons of it. So I find them a little bit interesting.
Raiders next 2 games, Bears and Colts.
Good matchups.
So we'll see what happens.
Brentley, real quick, Brock Bowers, eye test wise, like obviously it was a mediocre game.
And also wanted to bring this up, Brentley. Did Michael Mayer leave?
Yeah, so it looked like literally Jason Street, Friday Night Lights, like that kind of tackle. I think it was on a kickoff or a punt. It was on special teams. It looked bad. So they brought the card off right away. It looked really scary. He was able to walk off under his own kind of his own ability, leaning on some trainers, but he looked really out of it. I don't want to speculate. Right? They didn't say concussion, but he looked dazed, I would say. So yeah, not a good outlook for him probably next week. And
What
Bowers,
about
yeah,
for
sorry.
Brock
I mean,
Bowers?
he didn't get a ton of targets. As you mentioned, Gino was really kind of looking more down the field, and that was with Trey Tucker and even Dante Thorne had a couple looks down the field that they weren't able to connect on. But Bowers, when he got targets and caught the football, I thought he looked healthy, moved well. He made a guy miss with one of his receptions. So I think you can expect better games, obviously, ahead for Brock Bowers. Just today, I think Washington had a really good game plan, and when Gino was kind of scrambling and escaping from pressure, he would look more down the field rather than where Bowers was kind of in the intermediate areas of the field.
Yeah, that's 2 snaps for Michael Mayer, and then Brock Bowers played 34 of 36
Yeah.
in terms of routes. So that was a huge graduation for Brock Bowers for the future. So just he's got to shed that knee brace and hopefully look better in the third game back from that injury. But maybe next week is when he's back like firmly into the elite tight end conversation. So I think maybe a buy low guy.
Brentley, thanks for joining us.
All right, guys, have a
Appreciate
good one.
Carolina Panthers 30, Atlanta Falcons 0.
What?
Who saw this one coming from the first 2 weeks of the season when literally no one could stop Bijan Robinson and this rushing attack? I mean, he looked like the number 1 overall asset in fantasy football. And here he's still quite solid. I mean, 13 carries for 72 yards. That's a 5.5 average on the rushing department. In the air, another 5 catches for 39 yards. But Hayden, Michael Penix had one of the worst performances you'll see all season. And that is saying something based on some of the quarterbacking that we saw this week. The first half was horrific, missing all over the place. Like we talked about it when we were reviewing his, 2 or 3 starts from last season, that he could make these awesome downfield throws, bazookas only, but at times the placement would just get away from him. And boy, did it get away from him this game, where it was outside breaking routes that he was throwing away from people's hands. He wasn't in sync with like Drake London, who would curl back in this direction and he would throw it to the opposite shoulder. And then the other part of this is it's not like the Panthers have a tremendous pass rush, but they were like closing the pocket on him to the point where he would panic and freak out. And while he was getting to his check downs in previous weeks, and like that's where some of these Bijan huge receptions were coming to, he would flip it out there and Bijan would take a massive hit. Or it would be a, 3rd and 4, and he would panic to his blocking tight end who chipped in release, and you get a loss of 2 yards. And there was another one that he didn't even look to his check down, and that was a pick 6 the opposite direction, and he had another interception on top of this. So this is, I think, a terrifying performance for Michael Penix. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but he looked quite stiff, quite static, all arm. And I understand if you can be, and progression isn't linear, and you can be a high variance type. But at the same time, we haven't really gotten Drake London going this season. And this is another one with just 8 targets, 5 receptions, and 55 yards.
Yeah, all that stuff's scary to me because he's not going to add that much as a scrambler and stuff. So he has to just like dice up defenses from the pocket. And I don't like the nervousness around some pressure. And I'm looking at the pressure numbers. He wasn't even under pressure for that many snaps. He was just, the results were that bad, which is not good. So yeah, there were some like weird things in the data with the Falcons, just looking at like their slow pace, they're really low in neutral pass rate. And then in this one, they were not able to pass the ball at all. So I don't know like what the Penix like bench meter is with the Kirk Cousins. Obviously, most quarterbacks don't finish games when they're down 30 points. But yeah, I wonder how long, if Michael Penix plays like this, if they would continue with him. Obviously, the Kirk Cousins have been like no trade offers yet. So I don't think we're at that point yet. But
well, Kirk came in and he didn't look any better. So maybe that's a part of it too.
Yeah.
The Falcons also, we know, cut their longtime kicker in Younghoe Koo and then went on to miss a 46-yarder and a 55-yarder almost immediately. So that doesn't give you a lot of confidence in that decision moving forward. And then on the opposite end, with the Panthers scoring 30 points, 23 of those coming on offense, they had a huge first drive after the Falcons, missed their field goal. It included a 4th down conversion. Bryce went 5 of 7 for 51 yards. And then he had a rushing touchdown where he just evaded the Falcons pass rush.
Yep.
At the end of that first drive. He didn't have to do anything after that. Again, he finished 16 of 24 for 121 yards. He did have an awesome throw to Teddy McMillan, who climbed multiple ladders to go up and get it. It was very Cristiano Ronaldo-esque in terms of heading the football. Okay. And T-Mac had some other opportunities that he didn't convert. Like there was a long touchdown throw that once again, he couldn't release his other hand that he got one hand on, like we saw in week 1 against the Jaguars. Then there was a screen on like a 3rd and maybe 10 that he just let go through his hands. But again, there were other occasions that it just looks so different when the football is going in T-Mac's hands versus everyone else. Like Xavier Legette is out for this game. Jalen Coker's out for this game. And so Bryce is now throwing to Tommy Trimble, Bryson Tremaine, Jatavian Sanders, Mitchell Evans, and Hunter Renfrow and David Moore all over again. So they weren't pressed at all to pass the football, but that doesn't give you a lot of confidence for when, you actually have to have like a full passing offense for 4 quarters.
Yeah. I do like just the 33% target share for Tetairoa McMillan. So he's already at 30
nasty.
targets in the 3 games. So we're on pace here for Tetairoa McMillan. He's settling in as a really nice wide receiver too, before the post-bye rookie bump. So that's all encouraging. Was there anything about the offensive line? Obviously no Hunt and no Corbett at center and at right guard. It looks like they moved the ball on the ground fairly well still.
So I think there was some good coaching going on here. And I've been critical of, Dave Canales for the last 2 weeks, but on the first couple drives, there was a whole bunch of movement. So they weren't keeping Bryce static in the pocket. Even a lot of the runs, it was pulling multiple linemen, almost counteraction on a lot of it, which again, with Austin Corbett and Rob Hunt, you're going vertical. You're doing duo, you're going upfield, you're moving bodies. This was a lot of, again, we're moving people in front and trying to find the seams and running back staying patient behind there. So I wonder if that changes and keeps the same actually moving forward. I do want to mention that Chuba Hubbard got 17 for 73. He did get to the 1-inch line for a near touchdown. And then Rico Dowdle was the one that got the touchdown right after that. It was mostly a Rico Dowdle drive. You'll see that, like, I think it's every 2 for Chuba, then 1 for Rico. Okay. People are going to freak out. They really shouldn't after Chuba Hubbard got, 2 receiving scores in previous weeks on top of this. All right, let's rewind it back to Thursday. Feels like forever ago. Bills 31, Dolphins 21. Hayden 3 touchdowns for Josh Allen. Once again, James Cook looks like one of the better players on the field every time he touches it. 108 yards and 1 score. Don Kincaid, your tight end call this year, 66 and a score. We mentioned everyone with the Bills. Again, they spread the football around. What about the Dolphins? What do you remember about this game?
I remember a lot about this game. It was one of those where I thought Tyreek Hill looked good. Obviously, Jalen Waddle played well too. He scored a touchdown, 5 receptions on 6 targets there. Devon Achane, you're going to spam him, swing routes to the flats, and he catches, 7 targets or 7 receptions on 9 targets. So it was the same scammy offense from the Dolphins. I thought it was a well-called game from McDaniels, but when you actually need to like actually make a play, it's just volatile stuff. And when you throw the ball over the middle, like they do in this past game, then you're going to have some interceptions, and that ultimately cost them. So yeah, I guess just the conversation is with Tua is how many of these are like these little swing passes to Devon Achane. Like obviously some of them are designed, but not all of them. And from the broadcast angle, and that's what I like about the Prime stuff, is you can watch like the All 22 live. There were so many throws where Tua like had Tyreek or Waddle like 15 yards down the field, and he's just not throwing them. And the second he doesn't throw them, he has 2 options, like turn the ball over or throw the ball to Devon Achane in the flats. And that's just like a broken offense to me. So I don't know what they're going to do about this, because the right guard and right tackle are out, and the left guard has had a lot of mistakes, the second rounder out of Arizona. So I don't know how they're going to fix this. They're 0-3, and like I know they got a soft schedule for the next couple weeks, so like I'll give them 2 weeks to figure this out. But if we're 1-4, 0-5, like it's decision time. Who's on the Dolphins next year? And if you're not on the Dolphins next year, what exactly are we doing here? We're that close to that conversation.
Well, even before next year, there's going to be a crossroads or tipping point moment this year that ownership or someone is going to decide between Mike McDaniel and Tua if it continues on this streak. I mean, they are 0-3 that can easily keep going in this direction. And while like it wasn't like week 2 when literally nothing could happen, or week 1 or whatever it was, this one had some moments on top of it. But in the end, you can't close out these games, and you're 0-3, and it just keeps stacking these turnovers for Tua. I mean, he's basically ended each game with a turnover. And like that is not a position that you want to be in for your quarterback. And so again, I will reiterate that the owner is going to decide between the quarterback or the play caller, because you can't be losing games and then both keeping their jobs at some point.
To me, this would be an easy decision then. Like I would keep the coach who's at some points been like one of the best play callers in the league. And then at other points, he has not figured out the offensive line in the rush game. But I think that's big personnel issue. I think the GM, exactly what have you done recently? Like that would be something I would be heavily looking into if I was the owner of the Dolphins. But to me, like, I think McDaniels has done a hell of a job getting the most production you possibly can out of Tua. And like the early wrinkles of that offense are no longer going to be as successful because defenses have changed. So what's the counterpunch? And I think McDaniels is trying, but he also just knows that his quarterback is not good enough. So I think I give this a couple weeks. I mean, they have 2 very easy games coming up. If you win one of them or win both of them, then you buy more time. But if this thing's off the rails, I would rather see McDaniels with a different quarterback. And I know that we've had that and it's been completely terrible. But I would like to see like more downfield pass attempts, just see what they have in a different structured offense than what they would do with, you name the interim coach, with Tua. So I don't know. I think that the coach is better than the quarterback. But Tua is under contract for 2 more years, and that's the hard part.
The other part of that is the backup quarterback is Zach Wilson, and I understand some people might have the light on for Zach Wilson. The dude looked horrible in preseason action, and that's all we can look at. And in training camp and preseason and all that type of stuff. So to me, if you put in Zach Wilson, you're not doing that to anticipate this offense actually looking better. It's just to wave the white flag for the season. And it's to make the choice of, we have chosen Mike McDaniel over Tua, and we're already looking towards 2026. I don't think Zach Wilson comes in here and solves anything or makes this offense win football games.
Right. I'm not going to say that Zach Wilson's going to be the hero either. I would just like to see a different styled quarterback that can actually have some like arm talent down the field, just to see what would happen. Like, I would be interested if they offered a 6th-round pick for Jameis Winston, just to see what this would look like with Tyreek Hill and stuff. I think the other big thing we haven't even mentioned is the Tyreek Hill contract is very tradable. Like, a team could inherit Tyreek Hill for less than $1 million per game, which already means that for the rest of the season, it would cost less than $10 million. And that's without the Dolphins taking on more of his contract, which they easily could do for a better draft compensation. Devontae Adams last year was traded in mid-October for a conditional 3rd-round pick. I wouldn't trade as much for Tyreek Hill, but
yeah, I think it's just such a different conversation with like Tyreek Hill moving versus a fully committed veteran presence, genius at the wide receiver position that is Devontae Adams.
But he's a totally expiring contract. He's not going to be on the team next year. So if you're the Dolphins, best offer. If that's a 5th rounder, you take the damn 5th rounder. Like, I think that you need to move him first. So like, I would give it 2 more weeks. And if we're 1-4 or worse, he's got to go. And I think that a team would trade for him. It's not going to look like the Devontae Adams stuff, but there's plenty of teams that just need one more piece. And I think that Tyreek Hill, while he's not the same player, I still think that dude is extremely athletic. And I would like to see him on more downfield routes with a quarterback that can actually hit him in stride down the field again. Maybe in an offense where they're not just playing zone coverage over the top the entire time. So I think he's the most interesting short term. And then afterwards, they're going to have to make that to a McDaniels decision.
Final thoughts here on the Dolphins. We know Jalen Waddle was questionable for that game. He does get, I think, a 15-yard touchdown and goes 5 for 39 on 6 targets. You mentioned Tyreek, 5 for 49 in a score. And then Devon Achane still getting 19 touches, including 7 receptions for 29 yards. And then Ollie Gordon pops in, is running over people, looking powerful, looking good. They just have not been in situations this season to get him involved. If this was an alternate universe and they were a better football team with a better offensive line, I do think Ollie Gordon has enough individual talent to have made a bigger mark than he has in these first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think we'll probably talk about him on the waiver show with Jacob on after Monday Night Football ends.
We could look back on week 3 and call the Browns 13, Packers 10 matchup one of the weirder ones of the entire season. And even when I didn't get to watch this game, but diving into some of the advanced metrics, Hayden, underlying numbers here. Jordan Love, for an ambitious downfield passer, his intended air yards per attempt, if Next Gen Stats is correct, at 1.6 yards. 1.6 yards. Sacked 5 times. Hayden, it was very common for many football sites out there a couple years ago to say that defense doesn't matter when talking about betting and fantasy football and all those types of stuff. I think it matters.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Myles Garrett's any good. It's just one of these things. But like, apparently Mason Graham had a huge game with the 5th overall pick, and that's who they got, when they decided not to take Travis Hunter, and he popped up here. So yeah, I mean, the Browns defense, they're well coached, and when it's early in the season and they feel like they have some hope, they play really well. So yeah, I mean, what a stunning game. I need to absolutely go back and watch this one, but we knew it was a bad matchup for Josh Jacobs on the ground, just looking at what the Browns have done once again, 16 carries for 30 yards, and that's like,
that's after 23 yards for Derrick Henry in week 2 and 43 yards for Chase Brown in week 1.
Yeah. So we're going RB1 by RB1 in fantasy land and just chopping them right off. So yeah, it's a terrifying team to play on defense. Like both these defenses are going to be excellent, but man, when Myles Garrett's out there ready to go, it's insane.
And I know Jordan Love's late interception basically gave the Browns a chance of coming back and winning this game, tying it on top of it. Matthew Golden is the team's leading receiver, as weird as that sounds, with 4 catches for 52 yards, only gets 4 targets. Josh Jacobs 9. Tucker Kraft had a long 18-yard gain. And then, the Dobbs and Wick stuff just doesn't get there. I mean, it's just amazing how much a defense can smother, destroy opposing offenses for 3 straight weeks. And I'm not talking about the Packers here. I'm talking about the Browns. And they're 1-2. And it kind of feels like in the long run, it's going to be wasted how good this unit is. And we know it can be difficult to be sticky year over year. But that's cool. That's cool football. Okay.
It really is.
What we need to talk about with the Browns here, and again, we'll cover in depth when we actually watch this game on Stats versus Film on Tuesday, is the complete ownership here for Quinshon Judkins of the backfield. 18 carries for 94 yards, gets a goal line touchdown after getting other goal line opportunities that he failed on. And really, those 96 yards are a main part of them winning this game, because it was just 125 total passing yards at the end of the day, too, for Joe Flacco.
Yes. Suck it, nerds. You got win it on the ground and with your defense here. So that's exactly what happened. I mean, Quinshon Judkins just super impressive last week, and the numbers look very good once again. And nobody's been able to run on the Packers, and Quinshon Judkins was able to do that. So, Dylan Sampson he can be dropped in most leagues. Like, it's just as simple as that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you don't want handcuffs on the Browns. Really impressive for Quinshon Judkins on only 5 practices now, and he's already one of the few true bell cows across the league.
And I know Jerry Jeudy had a pass interference that was in the end zone that he could have caught. He didn't catch it, and only has 1 catch today for 17 yards. And Njoku 5 for 50, Cedric Tillman 3 for 26, and then Harold Fannin 3 for 25. We'll break this down even more in depth once we get to Stats versus Film. And that brings us to Pittsburgh Steelers 21, New England Patriots 14. I think the Steelers scored on 2 of their early drives and then didn't score until one of their final to have those 3 touchdowns that Aaron Rodgers threw 2 of. Kenneth Gainwell had a rushing score. I think the only major conversation to have in this game, Hayden, is the Patriots running backs and how they kind of gave the game away. Ramondre Stevenson has had fumble issues in the past. He didn't have that through his first 2 weeks. He fumbled twice today. Trevion Henderson last week couldn't pass protect, had 4 penalties, got his job taken away. And then Antonio Gibson, who was running ahead of him in this game, also had a fumble. And then when all those things happen, Trevion Henderson then basically owns halfway through the 3rd quarter and the entire 4th quarter. So my question is, how do we extrapolate that into now week 4?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously fantastic news for Trevion Henderson. 3 fumbles now for everybody else. And now all of a sudden he's the most reliable back after, mailing it in on pass protection. So we'll see how Vrabel wants to handle this one. He said he's going to go back and review how the fumbles happened here, but it's like you said, Gibson and Ramondre put the ball on the ground historically. So this is it's not that surprising. And, they're 1-2, they're 0-2 at home. And Trevion Henderson, we know long-term is going to be one of the special players. So this would be one of the bigger stock ups across the league. And it's just betting against the incumbents there. And it was almost 100% to 0% after the fumbles.
This is one of those moments in a rookie season that should be a launching point for a rookie to own the backfield in one that he was drafted to with an early 2nd round pick. Jacob Gibbs pointed out that Trevion Henderson had an 84% snap rate, following the Antonio Gibson fumble. He was the only running back to touch the ball after that.
And I think luckily he didn't have a huge game in terms of the production. We're talking about 19 receiving yards, 28 rushing yards. So he might be like the buy low if you're like, if you can catch somebody sleeping where they're like, I've gone 0 for 3 with the Travion Henderson stuff. Like, get this guy off my team. I'm 0 and 3, where you can be the guy now to swoop in and say, hey, like, he didn't have a good game here, but just know that eventually it's going to start working out.
And we need to get this right because they face the Carolina Panthers next week. Like, that is a perfect spot for Travion to come into immediately in his first start, hopefully.
I think most likely I will have Travion ranked well ahead of everybody else in this backfield next week.
It's amazing how quickly this all changes. Okay, we'll close things out with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 29, New York Jets 27. This one was super close at the end. I mean, the Jets scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. I know Tyrod Taylor, I think, had a pick 6 to Jamel Dean, but the Jets were the other team that block a field goal and return it for 6 on top of it. Hayden Emeka was supposed to have his snaps limited. Maybe he did, but he also had 8 targets, 6 receptions, and 85 yards as the team's leading receiver, and a sick one-hand stab along the sideline.
Yeah, and there's another one where I thought he caught the ball on the sideline in traffic too. So it was like 2 very impressive plays for him. Yeah, 28 of 40 routes. So I guess Rap Sheet wins this one, but he is too dang good, man. I mean, this is extremely impressive stuff. And like the big story moving forward is apparently they might get Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs back in week 4, but that might be on, limitation. And Mike Evans is undergoing an MRI for a hamstring injury. So we might have like Mike Evans out for a little bit and Chris Godwin like working his way back. And maybe the offensive line looks a little bit better with Tristan Wirfs back out there. And then all of a sudden, like, man, Emeka, after surviving this one, he's going to be in a really, really, really clean spot.
Twitter doctors were suggesting a hamstring injury for Mike Evans, which has been the issue over the last 2 years for Mike Evans. It's almost like a chronic thing at this point that keeps him out for some extended periods of time, which really sucks.
It does suck because that red zone touchdown here, another big win for him.
And we brought it up with, a missing guard, Luka Decky out. Rashad White and Bucky Irving combined for 30 carries for 78 yards on the ground. Jets have talent up front, but that's not great in terms of a consistent running game on top of it. Okay. On the Jets end, I don't know if there's anything to talk about here. I mean, Garrett Wilson does get there for 10 for 84 and 1, but I didn't watch a single second of offense for this team. Breece Hall only 9 for 21, does get 4 for 31 in the air. But after that week 1, Jets really haven't been able to run the football.
No, have not. And obviously Elijah Vera Tucker is not coming through those doors. So we'll see with this one. He did catch 4 passes. But yeah, once again, Garrett Wilson, that's 13 targets, massive target share. And I think that Tyrod Taylor is generally better for Garrett Wilson than Justin Fields. But yeah, they have like nobody else to throw the ball to. Like Mason Taylor, the rookie, he has 6 targets here. So it's running backs and tight ends as the next target getters. So yeah, he's going to have the crazy target shares, and then some weeks it will look good. Some weeks it will look terrible. And hopefully he ends up playing like the wide receiver 14 on average. And I think that is possible.
I believe that means we have at least brought up every single game for a moment on this episode. We'll have much, much more in the waiver show on Monday night, the best in the business with Hayden and Jacob Sanderson. Hopefully you're subscribed and tune into that every single week. Then on Tuesday, it is the flagship show. We go team by team with stats versus film. And then we start all over again on Wednesday with week 4 stuff. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for subscribing. Thank you all for sharing this with at least one friend. And shout out to Mosho and Weaves behind the scenes, Hayden and Brentley in front of the camera, up the villa. We'll talk to y'all soon. See ya.